So, Robin, earlier this year we met a young family, Jasmine and Raymond. They had a newborn baby.
Yep.
They were not married, and Jasmine was covered by Badger Care Plus when she gave birth to her baby. The call came in because Raymond was being called into court to assess birth costs. And this was going to be a judgment entered against him to repay the cost of this birth of their newborn baby girl. Now that goes back to the state Medicaid program to reimburse the cost because she was on Badger Care Plus when she delivered. He wondered if this was some sort of child support action.
Yeah.
And we helped clarify that this is actually a policy called birth cost recovery.
Yep. So let's define birth cost recovery.
You're right, birth cost recovery. It's a policy in the state of Wisconsin. It allows a county to go and recoup the cost of birth and delivery if the mother that delivered the baby was enrolled in Medicaid, Badger Care Plus at the time of the birth, and she was not married.
So this does not apply to every family on Medicaid, though.
No, you're right. It doesn't apply to all pregnant women. It only applies in that instance if you're enrolled in Badger Care Plus Medicaid, or Medicaid or Badger Care Plus is covering the birth and delivery. They're paying the cost, and they're unmarried. So this is a collection action to the father.
Okay. So I think we should clarify, this does look a bit different if the family is intact and they're all living together.
Right, and it didn't always. So this was a rule change back in 2018, the middle of 2018, starting July 1st, 2018. There was an administrative rule, and this is kind of deep in the weeds, but a rule was saying it would be inappropriate to collect birth costs from this father if this is an intact family. But prior to that, prior to July 1st, 2018, that was just went after any father if they were unmarried and the mom was on Medicaid at the time of the birth.
So the change in that administrative rule, sort of the idea being that if the family is all living together and it's intact, charging a birth cost to that family is taking money out of the household that could otherwise be going to the family to help that newborn child, those kind of things.
Right, yeah, like that argument of how are we supporting this family? If you're taking money out of that family, is that really supporting this new child? No. I mean, we would make the argument that birth cost recovery does that to all families. You're taking money out of a household. There, in no way is their money going to support the new baby, but it's even more stark when that is an intact family. So that administrative rule was a good change.
So even if a family and a mother do fit the criteria for a typical birth cost recovery judgment, there are some exemptions to that, though.
You're right. So and this isn't very well known. So we're going to put a couple resources below for people to read a little bit more about this policy exemption. It's called a good cause exemption. Maybe the mother doesn't know who the father is, and it would be really hard to disclose paternity. Or maybe she feels threatened if she did disclose the father. So, fear of violence, physical or emotional, could be enough to get a good cause exemption from having to identify the father and then have this collection action go against the father.
And it is important to highlight, I think, that some counties in Wisconsin do not practice birth cost recovery at all.
You're right, and you're good to highlight that because we don't want people to get confused. It's still a confusing process. Some counties, like we said, this is discretionary, so some counties just choose not to do that. Some have been a little bit more vocal in saying we're not going to do this, and Dane County is one. Dane County in the Madison area, the county executive put in his budget for 2020 that he wanted to eliminate the inequitable process of birth cost recovery, and we really celebrated that. So as of January 1st, 2020, Dane County will not be collecting birth costs from any family that it might otherwise attach to. And that was a good move. We're celebrating that move.
Yeah. And there are other conversations happening about this around the state.
There are. Other counties, maybe Dane County got the ball rolling with having people look at some of the arguments, the equity of the policy, how it's impacting different families differently. A common example we've heard, and we were a little surprised to hear it, but it makes sense, is, think of a family that maybe has a cultural marriage where they're married in their culture, but not legally in the state of Wisconsin. That's a family that birth cost recovery still could attach to. So there are a couple instances where this just doesn't seem fair. Other counties are talking about it. They're talking about the public health consequences. If you look at a family that might just be undergoing a lot of stress because of a collection action, stressing a pregnant woman is not seen as a healthy thing to do. So just eliminating that one practice could eliminate that one stressor. So other counties are starting to have these conversations. You're right.
And let's remind ourselves of the family we met in the beginning, Jasmine and Raymond.
Yep, Jasmine and Raymond. Like we said, Raymond was called into a hearing where birth costs were going to be assessed. We have found in situations like Jasmine and Raymond that a lot of people go into these hearings without an advocate or attorney, and they're left trying to figure this process out, trying to make the distinction of child support or birth cost recovery. What is this hearing actually about? And, is that administrative rule being followed? Yeah. Are they an intact family? How do you help describe what that looks like? What do you have to prove? So it's really helpful if families like Jasmine and Raymond, who we met, knew a little bit more about the process, knew what their rights and responsibilities were, so that they could try to stand up for their own rights and focus their energy on this new family that they have. And
for all those reasons, we encourage families like Jasmine and Raymond to reach out to us for more information on options, where to go, resources. We have some of those below the video as well.
All right. Thanks, Robin.
Yeah, thank you, Brynne.